Hey guys!
Welcome back to another episode of Tribe Talk Tuesday.
Alright, this week's episode, we're going to be talking about a little bit more to get to know us, our individuality, our passion, our interest, and how important it is to have your own individual.
Be yourself.
Be yourself, people. Let's get talking. So we've had a couple of podcasts already.
Oh my god.
Yeah. We already have a couple of podcasts out on our channel, and I think by now you guys kind of have a feel of like who we are a little bit. But in this podcast, we're gonna talk more about a little bit to like get to know us and our interests, our hobbies, and how, although we are all kind of like in sync, the three of us, and it seems like we do a lot of things together, we also have our own individual interests that we don't necessarily share.
Right.
So, yeah.
So we're going to kind of like go into that so you can kind of get to know us more as individuals, as our own person, because I feel like we've kind of talked about stuff as a group of friends and stuff we enjoy doing together, but not so much our own personal interest. And I know like with the last podcast we spoke about comics, which I'm super into a lot, so that was a little bit of getting to know me, but now we're just gonna expand on our interest right now.
I guess it's also like that part of the dynamic of having a tribe. It doesn't necessarily mean that you guys are all into the same thing. Like, that's not necessarily true. Obviously, it'll be nice to kind of share some things that you that all of you share, but then at the same time there is other things that you do, and that's kind of the things that you offer to your tribe. And
we teach each other something
we learn
new
a lot.
And different, because there are a lot of things that each one of us are into that the other one is not at all.
But I mean, it's still good because then like it's good to have friends that are into other things, because then you open up your mind more to other things as well.
Right.
And it doesn't get boring. Like, there's always something new. Like, always, like, oh, I don't know anything about that thing, so you learn more things. You don't necessarily have to like it, but at least you're exposed to other things rather than the things that you normally do.
Yeah.
So who wants to start to share their interests?
Who wants to start? I guess I'll start. Well, for those of you who listened to last week's podcast where we spoke about comic books, obviously one of my interests are comic books. And if you want to know more into like how I got into it, listen to our last podcast.
With our special guest.
Vivian. But I'm also really into music. It's always been like a really big passion of mine. Mostly like rock, metal music, which is funny because Bern listens to a lot of the music I listen to. Maybe not as much as I listen to it.
I don't keep up as much.
Yeah, she doesn't keep up as much.
But I definitely like that genre the best.
Yeah, Bull, not so much. Bull's like, what the fuck are you listening to?
And just to interfere a little bit of that, I think it's cool that like you're talking about the rock music, because I feel like that's kind of how the two of you got close.
Yeah.
We were on a trip.
Yeah.
And we were in the car, and Bern played her playlist, and Angie was like, oh, okay, she's into this kind of music.
Right. It was so funny because I didn't expect that from Bern, because initially when you see her, she doesn't really seem like the type that would listen. Well, at least to me, she didn't seem the type
okay.
that would.
Everyone says that. Everyone is like as if I start playing like my playlist, people are like, what? I thought you like listened to like Ariana Grande and like Justin Bieber. I did not expect this, and I'm like, yep.
Right.
This is what
so
I like.
I had just met Bern, and we were going away for her birthday. So we were in the car, and we were driving for a while. So she was playing her music, and I hear her play like this one band that I'm really into, Killswitch Engage, and I was like, oh snap! I was like, you listen to us? Like, this is your music? And she was like, yeah.
And in the snap of a finger, I felt the oddball now. Because
I don't know what this is.
Everybody was like listening to like rock music and like kind of scream. No, not so much as like scream, but like music that I don't listen to. I was like, oh shit, I guess I'm the odd one now because I don't know any of these music.
Right. So I'm really into that genre of music, just rock in general. But even then, as long as something sounds good to me, I just always need to be listening to music or have music around me because it's such a big part of my life. And it's the same thing as like I love going to like concerts and metal shows, which necessarily I don't go to with. That's for me. That's one thing that me and Burn and Bolt don't always like do together. Which is fine because like we were saying, you don't have to do everything together. So that's definitely one of my hobbies and one of my interests. And also like going along with the music, singing. Like before I used to sing a lot and like write music, which I haven't done in a really long time. But it's also it was always like a passion of mine too. So just music in general it's always like a big part of my life.
So I would say my passion is going on adventures or finding new places. I specifically enjoy outdoor places, such as like walking in a park or going hiking or finding like cool places outside, more of like in the woods and stuff.
Yeah. Well, because I feel like in anything, like most of our trips that involves nature or hiking, you always be
Yeah,
the one who
it's always
suggests them.
Burn who kind of plans it out. Yeah.
Yeah, I do like to be one with nature.
One with nature.
So I know lots of parks and things like that, and I do try and plan trips and activities that we do based on.
She's a good trip planner. Like we're gonna talk about because Bern and I are actually going away to Europe, and Bern actually did a lot of the planning. So that's definitely gonna be something we talk about in one of the podcasts because she's really good at that.
Thank you. But yeah, that's probably one of my passions is just trying to find somewhere adventurous to go, be it a hike, I don't know, just places that are very interesting.
I'm very interested with like art and stuff and creating things, but I think lately I haven't been really feeling that. But I think if there's anything that I'm really into right now that I know I could always jump into, I like watching sad movies. I like sitting by myself in the couch and watching a movie by myself and watching like a sad movie. I think before me and Angie moved in together in the weekends, especially when it's raining, I like to like watch movie by myself and like sad movies. And yes, it makes me a little bit depressed after the movie, but I don't know, I think there's something about sad things in general that speaks very honestly about whether it's music and the lyrics and how the artists feel. I feel like it's just so honest that I can relate to them. Or like maybe in movies where it's just so they show you like real life scenarios that could happen and there's like no fantasy involved into it or no other make it kind of like Hollywood-esque kind of movie. So it's just it's very raw that it gets to you and I kind of like relate to that. So I do like to watch, indie movies, sad movies, movies that I have no expectation whatsoever, and then you watch it and you're like, oh my god, I come out watching the movie with like a different perspective and things, or like I'd never really had that kind of like thought about like something, and then like after watching it, it just opens my perspective even more. So yeah, like I think if anything, that's probably like something that I like to do as an individual. I don't, as much as I do recommend to Angie and Bern to watch some of the sad movies. Or,
it don't happen very often.
That I've seen.
I watch some of your sad movies.
I don't.
Yeah. I tried to watch Lazaro last night.
Did you?
But I didn't. At that time, I was very tired and I fell asleep. And obviously, it's a subtitle movie.
Yeah.
So I have to watch it like probably tonight.
You wouldn't really call it like your Hollywood kind of movie, but yeah, it's just very interesting for me. So if you guys want to see what I'm talking about, go check out Lazaro. That's the kind of movies that
I think your passion is like indie seeker.
Yeah. He's an indie seeker for real.
And like I said earlier, like as much as I do recommend for like Angie to Bern to watch it, I don't think I would if I want to watch something like that, I don't necessarily would like ask somebody to watch it with me. It's kind of like a movie I like to watch by myself so I can fully absorb it by myself, and then I like reach out and like, hey, listen, you guys want to watch this movie? I don't mind watching with you now.
But the reason we wanted to like kind of talk about our own individual passions and hobbies and stuff like that was because we were actually talking about how important it is to kind of have your own thing away from everybody else.
Yeah.
Whether it be with your friends or a person that you're with, it's good to have your own thing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like.
I think it's more of like the millennials now is, I mean, obviously it still plays a part in like our generation, but I think it's more now with like everybody doing everybody doing the same thing. Everybody wants to be with the craze of what's going on. The whole
fad.
challenges on social media. You want to make sure you're also doing that to make yourself feel like you're involved into this kind of community.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking about like our own individuality and stuff, and the importance of that is that like, right, like we want to just let people know like you don't necessarily have to do what everybody else does.
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily now because I feel like that's always kind of been a thing where like when you're younger and you're in high school or middle school, you kind of want to fit in with everybody, so you want to have what everyone has and you want to be into the same thing that everyone's into so you can fit in and belong. Because I know with me, that was always like a big thing to me too. And I was like in high school and middle school, I was embarrassed about what I was into, you know? Like I was I was also very, a lot of people know I sang because I sang a lot in like the talent shows and stuff. In high school, I feel like I hid that a lot more because I was a little embarrassed and I was afraid to open up, or like I didn't like people knowing that I was into comic related stuff or into like rock music because I don't know, for me like it wasn't something that I felt like I needed to share because a lot of people I talked to weren't into that stuff. But then I realized like as I got older that like I just didn't care about fitting in with everybody. Like I wanted to enjoy what I enjoyed. And yes, like I had my friends who are not into all the same things that I'm into, but at the same time I feel like you need to have you have to have that room for what you love to do.
Right.
Because I feel like that at the end of the day is just gonna make you happy.
Yeah.
I think like having your own passions is good to like make yourself an individual, but it's also good to have such different personalities in like friend groups and stuff too, because it opens up your interests as well, or like how me and Angie bonded over liking the same music. I'm not as passionate about music as Angie is, but I do enjoy to listen to what she likes to listen to, so that's how we bonded. And then like with Bolt, I bonded with art because I enjoy being creative as well. But at the same time, yeah, they're interested in other things that, not that I'm not like interested in, but I'm not as passionate about. But it does open your mind to like
Different
those
things.
types of things, and I think it just makes people like a better version of themselves if they open their mind to like new things instead of having a friend group or like people surrounding you that are into all the same things that you are, like to the T.
Right. And it also allows you to meet new people and to really socialize outside of your group, which I feel like it's a really good thing to be able to talk to different people, because I know I've met, like going to concerts, I've gone to concerts by myself, and by doing that I've met a lot of people and I'm able to talk to people who are into the same music that I'm into or into the same bands that I'm into. So it just allows you to kind of expand and open up to different things.
Yeah, I also thinking of how before, when we all just started being really good friends, and like how I'm always talking about in vocal like how I'm scared to like let people know about my interests and stuff, and I don't really like to share most of them. And you guys said something to me where like, well, you know what, if the person that you're sharing those interests to is not into that or whatever, then they're just not the right people that you should be hanging out with, you know. So I think that's always like that fear of everybody who's scared to like talk about like their individual interests, because they're trying to fit into a group that they're not necessarily, because maybe in your mindset at that moment like you really think that that's the group that you want to be with, but like if that group doesn't really like respect your interests or anything like that or whatever, then like it's okay to not be part of that group. Also, I think like at the end of the day, it's you need to be okay by yourself. And if if you don't allow yourself to be into things that you're passionate to, and not necessarily everybody's into it, I feel like you're gonna have a hard time, because then you're constantly gonna be craving other people around you because you want to share what other people are doing and stuff. And having something that you're passionate as an individual will allow yourself to be okay by yourself, because then you're entertaining yourself, you're enjoying life by yourself, you're not necessarily like craving other people's attention to live.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Like what you were saying, if someone doesn't like your interests, then like you have to respect other people's interests. And I think that's why like certain friend groups work, is because you're still your own self, and you can do the things that you like to do by yourself. But then you have people that also respect what you like to do. And I agree, like if you don't like your individual self, like how can you be by yourself and do the things that you like to do if you're ashamed of them?
Yeah. Like it's like jokingly, like I'll mess with Bolt, and I like make fun of like, oh my god, here we go with the sad music, or these depressing ass movies, like why are we doing this? But like I'll joke around with him, but at the end of the day I still respect what he's into, you know, because that's him, that's what makes him him.
Yeah.
You know? So yes, like we may joke around, or he'll joke around about some of my stuff too, like, oh my god, you're listening to that angry music right now. So it's like we joke around because we're comfortable doing that with each other, but at the end of the day, we still have that mutual respect for what we love to do.
And we also like don't get, like, obviously we joke around with each other because like we're okay with our own passions and our own interests. It's not something that we're afraid to hide.
Right.
And you shouldn't, not even like hide from your friends. I don't think you should hide your individuality from anybody. I think you should just own what you love, and if people find it odd or different from what they love, then it is what it is.
Yeah, right. I think it's like that whole thing of like owning of like what you love and what you're passionate with, and allowing yourself to actually enjoy that passion that you like to do. Because if you don't, every time a person will tell you like, oh, why are you into that? You shouldn't be listening to that kind of music. You don't want to be the type of person that you're going to constantly change your interest just because somebody else says like, oh, well, why do you even bother watch that kind of movie? Like, you should be watching this kind of movie. Or like, why are you listening to that music? Everybody else is listening to this music. If you don't own what you love to do and what you're passionate with, you're going to be starting to always change your interest based on what other people tell you.
Right.
And then at the end of the day, if those people leave your company, what are you going to be left with if you don't acknowledge what you actually like to do? Right.
And especially like when you're dating someone and you're getting to know people, like obviously yes, you're not going to look for someone who's exactly into all the same things that you're into, but you're also going to look to someone who's willing and open to learn about the things that you're into. Like I had met this one guy that, oh my god, he was complete opposite of me, and I just felt like he was just very, very judgmental of the things that I was into, and just kind of like questioned a lot of things, and it was just such a turn off, because I'm like, okay, you may not be into the stuff that I'm into, but also don't sit there and act like you're better than me because you're not into those things, and you feel like maybe comic books is like a children thing, or like who listens to like rock music, like that music is just so aggressive and
pop.
Right, who collects, that was one thing, because I told him I have like Funko Pops, and he was like, oh wow, you have a lot of Funko Pops. I'm like, yeah. I was like, I enjoy collecting them, and he was like, oh, like it's kind of like for kids, no? And boy, I was like, okay, bye. On to the next. But it's like stuff like that. It's like you don't want to change what you're into because you're trying to impress somebody. I feel like I'm at the age where I'm like, I'm no longer trying to change who I am to impress you. Either you take me for me, or you go. Like I'm not changing who I am for you.
Yeah. Like what you like or what you're passionate about is what makes you you.
Yeah.
And that's what makes you different from everybody else. Like, obviously, yeah, there's going to be people that are also into the same things as you, but everybody's different and everyone goes about their passions differently. And to try and, like, hide that would be such a shame.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you just obviously right. You're gonna you need to find a crowd that will accept what you're into or open in perspective. Because yeah, you don't want to try to push yourself into a crowd that doesn't respect that, because that's not going to be like a really good environment. And not to say that like go and find people who are really into your same passion, because not necessarily. You just really need to find people who are open, because if that's the case where like you have to literally find people who are the same thing in your passion with, then me and Angie will not really match as a roommate, because we have we share common things, but we also share like we also are different in a lot of things.
Yeah.
And if we're both not respective of our own individual, then it's not gonna work. Because when I play my sad music, like I don't want Angie telling me like, Bull, we already had this discussion. You can't be playing that out loud. If you want to listen to that, listen to it in your room.
Keep it to yourself.
Keep it to yourself. If that's the kind of relationship that you're gonna have with like a friend or an individual, it's not really healthy at all.
No.
Yeah. It's also good to have friends that are respectful but into other things, because then you can open yourself up and see if you're into those things.
Right.
Like, I wasn't really necessarily into sad things, but Bolt did tell me to like watch certain movies or like listen to certain songs, and then, you know, it is interesting sometimes sometimes like some of the movies are interesting, and as much as maybe I don't love it as much as Bolt does, it's still like good to get into that
John.
into that like realm, or like if Angie, like I know Angie showed me some bands, and if it wasn't, because I'm not super passionate about music, if it wasn't for Angie, I wouldn't have maybe listened to a certain band. So she like opened that up too, and you can either decide to like it or not like it, but you still respect each other and you still open yourself up to more things.
Yeah, and it helps to like broaden your interest, your horizon, like learn something new. Like for example, like during like Halloween, there was all these movies that me and Bern are into and want to watch during Halloween that Bull has never seen
I'm just
before.
not into them.
And he's not into them, but he did like, he was willing to sit there and watch it with us and see like what exactly it was about, whether he liked it or not.
Yeah.
Spoiler, he did not like
most
of it.
I was gonna say that like I feel like Bern and Angie respect my individuality enough that I can be honest with them and say, listen, I did not like Beetlejuice as much as you guys were thinking I would like it. I didn't really enjoy, or not that I didn't enjoy, I wasn't into it as much as they were. You know, like, what is it?
Pan's Labyrinth?
Pan's Labyrinth and stuff. Like, if I was not okay with... yeah, and if I was not okay with the people that I share my time with, and, like, I feel like they'll not respect my opinion, then I'll be, like, that type of person who'll be like, oh, yeah, I enjoyed it. And I was like, I loved it as much as you guys did. But I didn't, you know? Like, you don't want to start lying to yourself if that's not something that you like. Like, yeah, be true to yourself. Let them know, like, I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it.
Right. I mean, and it's also good, too, that we have different passions and hobbies, because there definitely are times where sometimes some of us, like the three of us, have to be alone.
Right.
In order to, I don't know, get into something that we like. Like, Bolt will go watch his sad movie alone, like, when no one's there. Because there definitely have been times where, like, maybe me and Angie went out and Bolt wanted to stay home, or, like, you guys are hanging out and I wanted to stay home, or Angie went to go do something else because she was interested in it and, like, we weren't. But, like, then, like, when we come together, it's like, oh, we did this, we did that.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, it's good to broaden things.
You know, like, we let each other do what we want to do.
Right.
Eventually.
And it's good to do things on your own too. Like I had said before, I've gone to concerts by myself. Like people have looked at me like, "Oh, bitch, you're crazy going to you go to a metal show by yourself." Yeah, like if I don't have anyone who's into it or can't go, like Bird and Bull aren't into going to like metal shows, like where you're kind of like in like the pit area or something,
Yeah.
you know, and they're like, oh no, we don't want to go. I'm not gonna stop myself from going because I don't have anyone else to go with. I'm just
Right.
gonna go. And I remember the first time I did that, I went by myself and I went to the show by myself. It was such like it was such a dope ass like experience because I was there, I was enjoying the music that I was listening to, and everyone else there was enjoying the music that they were listening to, and they were all into it, and like we all had that common interest, so we were just having fun, just being there, singing along to the music. So it was like totally worth it. So sometimes you just have to do things on your own because not everyone's gonna want to do what you want to do.
Yeah, and I think that's the importance of like knowing who you are and what you're into and acknowledging what you're into, and just to be comfortable by yourself because that's the only time that like like I said, you're not everybody's going to be around you 24/7, and if you are not comfortable by yourself, then you might be start thinking that you're depressed because you're by yourself and no one's around you. Like you want to be able to be comfortable by yourself and entertain yourself. I think that way you can have I think it's just
Being your own individual.
right. Like it's so important. I think people need to know that they can be their own individual and not necessarily be in a
Yeah.
crowd because
Right. And I think that's also important too, going into like relationships. Because I feel like there's some people who are just so dependent on
Right.
the person that they're with
yeah,
because they don't have
their individual
their
interests.
yeah, they don't have their interests, or they or sometimes like unfortunately there's those significant others who kind of prevent you from doing what you love to do because they don't want to be a part of that and they expect you to be with them all the time, and that's hard because you need to be able to separate yourself from who you're with because you're not really one person. You're just
Yeah.
you're still two different people, and that's just important to still remember who you are even being with somebody else.
Right. It's like knowing you as an individual, I think, is part of growing and it's also part of maturing. Because if you don't allow yourself to be into what you're into, like your passion and stuff, then like when you get into like a relationship, you start clinging on that other person's interest. You start doing what that other person is doing, what
Yeah.
they're into. Now you're molding your life based on their life, and you'll see scenarios like especially like on movies that like when you separate, that person don't know what to do with their life because they don't know, they don't have an interest, they didn't respect enough to acknowledge what they're into, and they molded themselves into an individual that they don't really even like.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important to have your own individual.
Yeah, like you need to be an individual and be on your own too, but at the same time also open yourself up to other interests
Right.
as well.
Well, I think that's yeah, no, exactly. That's the thing. It's like you want to be able to know that you have something original, like your origin inside you, and then starts, grabbing things that people are opening up to you. Like, oh, okay, cool. I'm into that too. I'm into that too. But at the end of the day, you still have that core
Right.
in you,
Right.
and that you're not just a collection of things that you pulled from different people. Because if that's just you, then like, who are you really?
Right. And there's people like that, which
They
is
are.
it's sad. There's people who just they're into things because everyone else is into those things.
Yeah, and then you'll go in like midlife crisis, and you don't know
Midlife crisis?
Yeah, you don't know. What
We're
to
not
do
that
with your
old.
life.
But there's like definitely people that like don't know what they're into. So of course, because they haven't like really thought about it. So of course, yeah, they're gonna be into things that other people are into at the moment.
Yeah. And then when something else new comes out that everyone is into, okay, time to change it
Time
up.
to change
girl.
again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I
God.
think individuality is also like knowing who you are, what you like,
Yeah.
and being okay with it.
Yeah.
Right. And I also feel like you trying to be into what everyone else is trying to be is just so much more work than you just being
Right.
yourself.
Right.
You know, I feel like that just takes up so much energy. Like trying to learn what other people are into because you want to be a part of that group or whatever. It's just so much more work than you just being yourself, because you being yourself, you're releasing, you're letting just you be you.
Yeah.
And that's just it's freeing.
Yeah. It's standing up for yourself, because yes, there are a lot of people who will convince you otherwise, you know, peer pressure and stuff. And
Yeah.
I think it's just good to know that, like, at the end of the day, life goes on and you'll meet people who are into the same thing, or
Right.
at least will respect your interests. So don't feel like you have to stick with what you have right now, or who the people that you're I don't know, associating with. If that's not the
Yeah.
crowd that you feel like if you feel like you're changing yourself for that crowd, don't feel like that's the only crowd that you'll
Yeah.
ever be meeting.
Right.
You know, there's people out there.
Right, and you grow, and sometimes people don't grow with you. And you just have to be okay with that. You can't just let people hold you back from doing new things and experiencing new things, and
being you.
just be you, guys.
Just be you.
Okay,
At the
be
end of the
you.
day, it's self-respect.
That's just the best side of a person.
Yeah, self-respect.
Is yourself.
Respect what you're into. Respect your own passion. Respect that other people are not going to be into the same thing as you are.
R-E-S-P-C-T.
R-E-S-P-C-T.
Find out what it means to me.
But so yeah. Anyways, you guys, if you're into,
Some of the things we're into, let us know.
let us know, or like
Yeah.
let us know what you're passionate
Yeah.
with and stuff, and leave it on the comment below, and I'd love to hear
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
Any suggestions for sad movies for Bolt?
Oh yeah. Or if you guys want me, to suggest some sad movies, actually, you know what? Maybe I'll put some of my favorite sad music down below. You guys can
Yikes!
see.
Be prepared, guys.
Yeah, go grab a popcorn or whatever, or light up a candle and watch a movie. Dim
Sit
that
on the
light.
couch. Dim that light.
Dim
Be
that light.
silent.
Or if it's like a rainy day, then go watch this. My suggestion movies. Anyways.
My lordy.
Uh,
Good luck, guys.
Let me know if you guys do watch it. That'll be cool. On our like next video, or future video, let me know if you guys decide that.
I'll
you
go
guys
read your list.
I won't.
Yeah. Anyways, as always, you guys make sure that you like
and
this
subscribe.
video and subscribe into
Yeah.
our channel. We're making more content for you guys, keep you guys updated, and keep this conversation going.
Yeah, and let us know if there's any topics that you guys want us to talk about. We can use some ideas.
Yeah, come on, guys, give us some things to talk about.
Yeah.
Or even go visit our Tribal3 Instagram page, and
You can DM us.
Yeah, DM us.
Interact
Let
with
us know
us.
what you're into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks for
Thank you guys
listening.
for listening.